It seems like it's been 40 weeks since you got 40 winks. Your back pain? Unbearable. Tossing, turning, trying to find that pain-free position. And that's the moment you realize you can't spend another waking moment putting off treatment.
The Joint and Spine Center is Cincinnati's leading destination for spine care, with a ton of surgical and non-surgical treatments for back pain. So when a moment has the power to change the rest of your life, go to the one place with the power to change it for the better, the Christ Hospital Health Network. This changes everything.
The Pound This Podcast is brought to you by the Christ Hospital Health Network. This is the Pound This Podcast, episode 675, The Struggles of Losing 100 Pounds and Working in Fitness with Tara Vollman.
I want to lose weight, but I don't know how to get started.
What should I meal prep every week?
How do I get those sweet booty gains?
Inspiration for your healthy lifestyle. The Pound This Podcast with Amanda Valentine.
Thank you so much for listening to the Pound This Podcast. I'm Amanda Valentine. My guest today is Tara Vollman, or T Breezy on Instagram, which you told me that's just what people call you now, right?
Yes, it's just what people call me now. I show up like T Breezy, what's up? So
isn't it funny that you're like, oh, I guess my name is my Instagram handle now?
Yeah, things have turned. Yeah.
I don't know. Nobody calls me You Can Pound This.
Right. That would be that. I might start. Yeah.
Or if it's just pound. I mean, Pound This was already taken by somebody else, which is why it was You Can Pound This.
Okay.
But I mean, both are pretty, like, it sounds like porn. So
right. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, which is the point.
Yes, exactly. You don't know what you're going to get.
So you have such an amazing story. We've been sitting here chatting away before we even recorded, because we have a lot in common, where you've lost over 100 pounds. You've changed careers. You're a personal trainer, and you've just, I just can't wait to like dive into this even more and share your story. So I guess we should just kind of pull back from the very beginning, I guess, struggles, thinking of like, you know, with your weight and your body, and I guess kind of leading up to now. So there's a lot of information to share.
So much information. Yeah. So chime in whenever. But as you said, a lot of similarities with you. I grew up overweight my entire life, but was always involved in fitness and sports, never excelled, but always involved. So always looking to, kind of find something that stuck, and it never did. So anyway, 30 years later, I found something that that I got into and was working. So I started getting into interval training, and with that, I kind of opposite of you got into eating right and then added in movement, right?
Mm-hmm,
yeah. So I did movement and then added in eating right and saw success. And so that's how my whole journey started. I was like, oh, I can do this. And with that being said, my life kind of took a switch, got into fitness, and then wanted to help somebody who I knew felt like myself. So got into fitness to do that. But then I also think a tiny bit to make sure I never went back the opposite way. So that's a quick Cliff Note version. Any part you wanted me to dig into anymore?
Yeah, I get. Well, at what point where it just started clicking from, okay, I really enjoy this exercise, and then where did it turn into, okay, let me work on my food too?
It started, so at the gym I was at, they ran a New Year's resolution type deal where a weight loss challenge. Yeah. So with that, I got in with a coach who helped me with my food. So I started tracking macros, and that's when it really all came together for me. So
do you enjoy that part of it, or is it kind of a chore to?
No, I love it.
Okay, awesome.
I don't know why, because I'm not a very number person, but I like the control.
Do you still do that?
Yeah, I still do it. I don't need to as much anymore. I can eyeball for most part, but I still plug it in every single day.
Well, and I think that's an important part too of it. Like, just same thing with your fitness. If like, this is something that clicks for me and it works. And that's where it's like, if you tried something else and it didn't work, then you just got to find the right thing. Cause you said you had done other physical activity right before and it just didn't click in the same way as interval training.
Yeah, exactly. I tried all kinds of stuff. So I finally, when I tried it, I was like, that was not that fun, but I want to come back. You know, I was uncomfortable, but I knew I wanted to go back. And I was like, that's a good sign. So you should go back.
Was this at Orange Theory?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right on.
Yeah.
So how long did you go to Orange Theory for?
Probably about, I think 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah. A good chunk.
So how long did it take you to lose over 100 pounds?
It took me, I would say, a year and a half.
Okay.
A year and a half. Now, I worked for a craft beer distributor at the time, and I was attending a lot of craft beer events. So like my work-life balance, or, you know, the balance between play and working out and eating right, it was there. So I was still going out on the weekends, and still we would go to breweries all the time for work.
Yeah.
And you can't say no to a beer. So yeah, I definitely found a way to make both work. It wasn't, you know, just nothing, no alcohol, all strict.
Yeah.
I found a nice balance.
Well, and I think that, again, that's where it becomes like a lifestyle. 'Cause
Yes.
it's the moment you tell yourself like, okay, well, I'm doing this thing and this is the only way that this works, then
Right.
it's a signing up for failure.
Exactly. Yeah. I was able to maintain with my alcohol consumption.
Had you done any sort of like yo-yo dieting or anything like that before, or tried something?
Girl, yeah. Yes.
What did you all do?
I think I've done it all. I did Weight Watchers when I was probably 12. I mean, South Beach diet.
I did
My dad
South
had me eating
Beach.
Jell-O with some whipped cream because I think he was doing it. So, and my parents are they're in shape and take care of themselves, and and healthy eating has always been part of their lifestyle. But anyway, yeah, sorry, I digress. But yeah, South Beach diet, you know, like shakes, all of it.
Did any of that stuff ever work for you?
No. Maybe
Which-
it's quick 10 pounds or, you know, something, but nothing sustainable. No.
So what, after having like, you know, you think of failure after failure with those, like what do you feel like kept you driving to be like, no, I need to figure something else out? Or were you even feeling that way?
Yeah. I mean, I was almost 300 pounds. So I knew, and I almost felt helpless. So I didn't know what was going to work because I was trying. I'm like, if I'm 300 pounds and doing this and this isn't working, what's going to work?
Yeah.
You know? So I always just kept trying. And my mom's a big fitness person. She always just kept inviting me, and I would come up with a million excuses until I ran out. And so I would go with her places, you know? So it was always very prevalent in my life.
Do you feel like that played a role at all? Not to play therapist over here, of like having parents that are really into fitness. Is that, I mean, that's got to be in your head rolling around and having some feelings around that.
Oh, for sure. And I don't know if that's what pushed me the opposite. I don't know. Like, we always had healthy food. We always had, you know, a diet, you know, in the 90s when everything was diet Pepsi, or, you know, I was always eating that stuff. So when I would get around other stuff, I'd be like, oh, hell yeah, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely think it played a role, but I'm not sure why I went the opposite way.
But was there anything, were your parents like ever upset with you of like, hey, we want you to be a certain size sort of thing?
No,
Okay,
never.
that's great.
Never. No. My dad would be like, could you go walk the dog for about an hour? You know, they would be gentle about it and like not saying, hey, you need to lose weight, go walk the dog. You're just like, hey, why don't you take the dog for a walk for about an hour? You know? So I'm like, I'm 15, I get it, you know, but so yeah, no, never anything from that angle.
Do you work out with your parents now?
I do. I work at Shred 415. So my mom actually retired and works there with me now.
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
She works there. We worked out together this morning. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
It's super fun.
That is really
It's
fun.
cool. And I think as you get older too, I appreciate so much that she takes care of herself, and my dad too, you know? So they both take care of themselves as far as making sure they get their exercise in and eat right. And you appreciate that more as you realize it can go. You know?
Yeah, right. Well, I think that anybody that's on any sort of weight loss journey, which we've talked about, I mean, outside of recording, of like how quickly it can go away and how quickly it's like, especially I think with strength, like you just take a few weeks off and you're just like, I've already slid backwards a little bit. And
it's very humbling.
Yeah. And I mean, that's where it's like, it takes so long to build and create and how quickly it can go away. So I feel like that's where, when it is a lifestyle and it becomes consistent like that, then there's a lesser chance of that sliding all the way back.
Yes.
But it is also eye-opening to be like, wow, I really do need to keep this up for life, because
This isn't, there's no end game.
Yeah.
Like this is that I've had to tell myself, like, just when you get to a certain point, you're not stopping. So figure out something that's sustainable, right? Because you gotta keep doing it.
What do you think the hardest part of your journey has been so far? Sorry, that's a tough question.
I'd say, I mean, it changes. There's so much on this journey that I didn't know was going to be an issue. But I'd say at this point in my life, I think the hardest thing is finding something that works, that's sustainable.
Okay. So what are some, and I know this is where we're going to talk about like turning this into a career, because we were having the discussion over the podcast I did a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Of, where I just cried my eyes out and talking about gaining COVID weight and how much it's in my head of like, I work in health and fitness now, being a personal trainer, and it gets in your head in a way that I never expected or even thought about. And I know that you feel the same way. So how much has that impacted you from going through a weight loss journey and then be like, I'm going to go make this a career? Like, how has that transition been for you?
Yeah, well, I had no idea that I could go backwards. So, like at pre-COVID, I was top notch. I had everything in line, my workouts, my eating. I was looking the best I've looked. And then COVID happened. And I thought, like you mentioned on the previous podcast, you're like, this is the perfect time to focus on health and nutrition and really dial in. I have nothing else going on.
Yeah.
Because I was out of work. And I just kept going backwards. I kept slipping. And I kept saying, Tara, you've got to get this together, because when stuff opens back up, you're opening, like Shred was opening when we were coming out of COVID, or I wouldn't call July out, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm like, you have got to get it together. You cannot show up at a gym and look like this. It was I was telling myself.
Yeah.
Which wasn't very helpful, because I didn't do my, like, I was working out and running, but it wasn't what I was doing before, and it wasn't working the same way. I probably had gained 15 pounds or something at that point. But I've been trending that way since COVID. So it's been a challenge.
Yeah. And I think that's, where I feel the exact same way. And it's so, but it's like when you hear somebody else say it, like when I hear you tell me that story, I'm like, come on, girl, give yourself some grace. We're in a global pandemic, and it's been a trash fire year and a half for all of us. Like, oh my God, you've just gained 15 pounds. That's the worst. So it happens. Like, whoa, man, we got out of this easy, right? And so it's like, yeah, when you hear someone else say it, you're just kind of like, oh man, well, of course, like,
right. Give yourself
hard.
grace,
yeah.
like I tell everybody else.
Yeah. And then, but when it's you,
Yeah.
you're just kind of like, you're such a turd. Why can't you get it together? Like for me, like, I'm like, I had it together for years. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm solid. I'm on solid ground.
I would have thought the same thing.
Yeah. And then you're just like, some things in life you just like cannot expect to be a blindside punch to the head, and you don't know how you're going to deal with it. And then telling yourself you're this awful person or you don't belong because of that is not going to make it any better.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I would be like, I can't go to work. I can't go to work like this. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. Go to work, but it's just, it's something I never knew I would have an issue with. I didn't, like you said, getting into fitness, and then you have this whole new challenge of how you view yourself.
Yeah. Of like, I'm a personal trainer, and then you have an idea of what like a personal trainer is, which I had that discussion here with some of the personal trainers at my gym of like, what do you think of when you think of personal trainer? I'm like, I just think of somebody that's just like really fit. You think of just somebody that's like, yeah, like they're ripped and they're just like live and breathe fitness, and like, and that's like, your classic idea, which I know that's not true. I know so many personal trainers, especially from doing this podcast, of like, that isn't true of everybody. And the people that aren't that are the people that, I relate to the most, and I think are amazing for being in this space. But for some reason, like, I can't compare myself to that. Like, you think that you have to be like some pinnacle or some unrealistic version of perfection of what it's supposed to be, because that title is slapped onto it. And I think that's, for me anyway, of like just growing up with that being so far removed from anything that I ever knew, and being so far removed from any sort of like fitness, of like, that's something that's unobtainable. I don't belong in that club. I don't fit in here at all. Like that group of people doesn't understand me and I don't understand them. And then to join that as a job, and that's nothing too specific to where I work now, to I think just being in the fitness industry where it's like, how did I get here?
Right.
Like, am I welcomed in here? Like, and it's like you are, but it's all in your own head. Like nobody came up to me and like stank-eyed me of like,
Yes.
you are a trainer.
Yeah, it's actually the opposite. You know, people are like, yes, this is amazing. Their class was great. Blah, blah, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, but I look like this. You know what I mean? So I totally get that. Like nobody's telling me any of these things. I'm telling myself
Yeah. And
that I'm not good enough, which is because of what I look like.
I know. I'm like, why are we like this?
Right. Yeah.
But it's just so hard to get, again, like you can hear somebody else say that and it's like, it clicks in a different way for yourself, but you're just like, I don't know, it is a whole nother journey and a level of work that goes into it to change your mindset of that, of basically like how you show up in the world.
Yes.
And where you think you belong and you don't, and you know, feeling like you didn't belong in so many other places before, of like, well, I wasn't accepted here before, so why am I accepted here now, sort of thing. And that, and then I think for me, I mean, this isn't even just being a personal trainer. I think being a personal trainer puts an extra level on top of this for me. But it's like, you know, having Instagram and a podcast and, you know, people like kind of like know who you are from that if they're not working with you one-on-one. And then by the time, like, you know, they would come into the gym or would like meet me somewhere and be like, oh, she's fatter than I thought she would be. Like that's in my head all the time.
Yes. Like,
too.
am I putting myself out there on Instagram how I really look, or is this?
Yeah. Like, is that what I really look like? Am I trying
Yes.
too hard? Or like what, you know, because I like purposely try not to like suck in or whatever, because then it's like
No filter, please.
Yeah, right. Where because then it's just like I don't want to be that. But then, you know, you hear somebody's like, oh, you lost 100 pounds, and then people have in their own head what you're supposed to look like from losing a large amount of weight, and then when you don't connect with that, like again. That's in my head, though. Nobody has ever come up to me and like, God, you're fatter than I thought you would be. Like, no one has ever said that to me.
Right.
And I don't even know what I would do if somebody did say that to me.
Yeah.
Where I think I would have some snappy comeback, but I wouldn't until I'd be like in the shower
just
later.
walk away,
and be
cry.
like, that bitch. And so, but it's, I don't know. It's just, that's just like an added element that I think that we isn't part of the conversation either, is how much social media plays in a role, because you do want to share your journey. You do want to talk about like, hey, I'm a trainer now and here's like part of my weight loss, and you're putting this stuff online because that's just kind of what most people do now. And then how do other people accept that story versus how they perceive it whenever it's not through a screen and it's face to face? I don't know. That's some weird mind scramble for me too.
Yeah, I agree. And like when I started my account, it was purely for accountability for myself. I had no idea people were coming on, you know, going to start following me, but people did. So, and then I'm finding myself now generating content for a different reason, you know, for a different reason. And like you said, putting yourself out there and coming up, like, do I really look like that? Is this realistic enough? Is when someone sees me in real life, are they going to be like, man, she really cropped that nicely, or
she catfished me?
Yeah, she catfished me. Yeah, totally. So, I get that, and it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure. I actually I've been trying to get myself back on the right path. The past probably month and a half, I've hardly posted anything. And that used to be all I did.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I'm tired. And I think I'm tired of trying to put on something that I don't need to. Like, I'm doing all this to myself. No one's putting any of these expectations on me. It's all in my own head.
You can see, I think I see that with so many people, because I do follow a lot of people, you know, weight loss accounts and stuff like that, because I like hearing people's stories and I find my own motivation in it too, and like to see what people are up to, or seeing recipes and all that other stuff, whether they have 30 people following them or 300,000. And I've noticed with a lot of people, but especially in the past year and a half, where you can tell when people aren't feeling good about themselves and they ghost out. And I get it. And then, you know, at least I know now, behind the scenes of that, I wouldn't say for all of us, because not all of us have attachments to social media, but I'd say a good majority of us do, to be like, and you're spinning in your own head of like, what a piece of crap you are that whole time because you're not posting on Instagram the way you used to.
I
like,
know.
and then it's like you're dogpiling more problems onto problems. And you're like, God, chill out. It's like not that freaking important.
Right.
But when you're using an account like that for your own accountability and then you're not holding yourself accountable and you're not feeling good, then I don't know. It's meant to be helpful, but it also just burns you just as hard.
And then, like you said, tying that into then your job or your business, your career, when it's all now into one ball.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, I'm failing at everything,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a whole, I kind of just took a break and I'm going to, come back gently probably when I'm ready. But yeah,
that's kind of what
social
I'm doing
media is,
too.
it ebbs and flows for me.
Well, and I think it's also just been, take health and fitness out of it because of COVID. Like that became a lifeline,
Absolutely,
I didn't see so many people and you're quarantined and everything else that we went through. And so it's like, okay, well now I am on TikTok and everything so much more of like, that is like my connection and you're keeping in touch with people that you used to see way more often.
Yeah.
And so then when it becomes the only way you're social, then all that extra pressure, whether you're posting pictures of just like, cute family photos or weight loss photos, I don't know. I can't wait for this to be like studied.
Yeah, right. I know we're the guinea pigs.
Yeah, exactly. Of like, what is this really doing to us? Because just even in the past several years of having, like a weight loss Instagram account, which is my You Can Pound This account, which I started, I want to say maybe like end of 2017, something like that. So it hasn't been that long, but just to see how much Instagram has changed, not the way that I just use it, but just how everybody uses it and how it used to be like, here's a picture of my food to like, here's this perfectly posed, beautiful. I'm like laughing into the air, like I'm a Lay's ad.
Yeah.
And like it just went from that. I'm like, whoa, it used to be like dingy, dark pictures of your chicken breast.
Right. I have some of those if you scroll back far enough.
Same.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. It's really taken quite the turn for sure.
Yeah. It's just
bittersweet.
Interesting. Yeah. Where it's like, then I don't know. I struggle with that with just, with my consumption of it, of people that I enjoy to follow, or accounts of people I don't know, just because I like seeing different workouts and all that stuff of like, then for me, it's like, well, how much is this even motivational anymore? Because this is done for like product, like show, like this has become an ad.
Yeah, whether it's not genuine.
Yeah, it's not, or whether it's an ad for a supplement, it's an ad for them.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, then I'm like, well, I just liked it whenever you just kind of showed me what you were doing every day.
Right.
And now I want to buy your like, your like 30-day super shred program ebook.
Right.
And now that's all I'm seeing from you.
Right.
And so I don't know, that I just feel like that's changed so much, specifically on Instagram. And then even on TikTok, which I'm on way too much.
It's addicting.
It totally is. But even there of just where some things where you'll think that I'm getting good information and then they'll leave you on a cliffhanger and be like, follow me for more. And I'm like, oh, come on.
Yeah, right.
Just tell me.
Yes.
So I don't know. It's like, I feel like in the middle of all this, especially through COVID, I've just like had such a weird relationship with social media, and it's changed so much. And I'm glad to hear that I'm not the only one that's kind of feeling that, because I don't know, it feels like it's been weird.
Yeah, I agree. And another thing about social media that I never thought about is people who are constantly posting their chicken breasts and their workouts and everything's hunky dory, and I'm over here struggling. I was getting mad. I'm like, that's nice. But I'm mad. And so I think the content I'm putting out, when I was like, oh, here's my chicken breast and here's my workout, kind of made me rethink what I'm posting, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because like when you're not feeling good about yourself and you see someone constantly who's always in line, you're like, why can't I do that too? Or, so I was getting frustrated with that too.
Yeah. Which I feel like, I feel, just from my own perception, I might feel guilty of that because I mean, I still meal prep and I've been posting my meal prep, but then I know people think that's really intense of like, oh, Amanda must have it all together because she's meal prepping every Sunday. And I'm like, yeah, and I'm crying through it.
Yeah. I think you have it together. So
sometimes.
Yeah.
But then speaking of like just even the comparison game or thinking about, you know, you're showing these perfect things on social media, but then take that to working in the health and fitness industry. I mean, you're working with a bunch of other trainers and other people. Like that feels like also you feel that pressure from, I think, those other people in that space of like, oh, they must be crushing it. They must be crushing their workouts. They must be crushing their food. Their mindset must be killer. But I'm the one that's over here that's like a train wreck. And like, that's also probably not true either.
Yeah. And I feel like that for sure. And no one puts that on me but myself, but just the environment sometimes in the health and fitness industry, when you don't feel you look the part, you feel like a fraud or like you don't deserve to be there. But I had someone say like, that makes you relatable.
Yeah.
You know, and I think I tend to forget that. There are probably a lot more people in my shoes than, you know, competition, people who are training for a fitness competition shoes or whatever, if that makes sense. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, all the same, I'll get so in my head about it and then I'll have to pull myself back. And I'm like, well, for me, if you were going to hire a personal trainer, which I mean, I have and I was going to do that, I'm like, I would want to train with somebody that understands me like me. So I'm like, why am I being so hard on myself to be something I'm not, or to think that I have to fit into this of like, but everybody that, or at least the people that I want to work with that are coming into a gym or want to work out are like looking to better themselves or just taking that very first step. And like, that's the people I want to hang with.
Yes.
Those are the people I want to talk to. So I'm like, if I like, why am I worried about being some other thing?
We don't have to fit a mold. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
it just feels like, again, where you have to like step back. And that's, like we were saying earlier, like so much of this that the mental part I didn't even really fully consider of how much it was going to get in my head of, oh, you're a fitness professional. Like me? Like what? What does that mean for me? And how do other people view that? And you're already so in your head of like how people view you in your own body of just trying to, you know, go on your own journey. And then it's like you made it worse.
Yes.
On purpose.
Yes. Magnified it.
Yeah. Thinking about me, you're making it better.
Right. Exactly. And I do think getting into the industry, I was looking for a way to make sure I stayed saved myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, like never understood the other side of it.
Yeah. And I had somebody reach out to me, about that podcast I did talking about that a few weeks ago. And she's just like, yeah, I wanted to warn you, like you get in your head about your body when this is a career choice.
Right.
And like, yeah, I don't know why that didn't click to me, probably because I'd never experienced that before. Just like, I think anything where if you've never lost weight before or gone through that journey and then going through it, you learn a lot of really hard lessons about yourself and the whole journey and how it all works. And there's a lot of falling down on your face and having to pull yourself back up.
Yeah. That's why when I heard your podcast, that is exactly how I had been feeling all through COVID. And I was like, I never articulated it to anybody. So when you spoke, like everything you said, I was like, yes, 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 yes. Like it made me feel so good to know I wasn't alone feeling like that. I'm sad you were struggling too, you know, alongside, but like it made me feel like, I guess, a little more normal. And I was comforted by the fact that you spelled it out for me. So, yeah, I'd been telling some people like, I feel like a fraud. I feel like, why are people going to listen to me when I can't even get my shit together? Yeah. But to know like it's okay. And I mean, it's all part of the process. The biggest thing I learned is it's not linear during COVID. Nothing's linear. You're going to go back. You're going to go forward. You're going to go back. And I think, I mean, that's only going to take me farther in the long run.
Oh, for sure. And I want to say to you too, when you reached out to me after listening to my podcast, I'm like, that's exactly how it made me feel, where I'm like, I don't feel alone here. I just bawled my eyes out
Yeah.
on this podcast. And like, I'm like, oh my God. Okay. Like, it's not just me having this like experience doing this. So that it made me feel so comforted that somebody else is like, oh my
Yes.
God. Oh, yes. Oh my God. Me too. Thank you. Which is like, again, proof that I think that we all connect so much more on the stumbling blocks and the
Yes.
failures than the like epic wins where we're proud of each other and we're happy
Right.
and high fives and hugs for wins. But it's like where we really bond, I feel, is like, oh God, yeah, me too.
Do you
It's
feel
the
this shitty
worst.
too? Yes. Yeah.
So the other people that you shared that with that said that you felt like a fraud, like how did they react?
Like I'm crazy. Like I'm absurd, you know? And I work out with a friend every week, and she said, she's constantly talking me off the ledge. But she said to me one day, she said, I'm so proud of you because you feel like this and you haven't given up. Just on myself, like not my job, but like I still show up and work out, and I'm still trying. And when something doesn't work, I try something else. And, you know, she's like, you haven't given up. And she goes, that's so admirable. And I was like, thank you for saying that, you know, because it's not that I'm not trying. It's just what I used to do isn't working anymore because I'm not able to do the same things. But I really appreciated that, you know? So I think being able to show people that, yes, I have reversed, but I haven't stopped giving up on trying to find a solution will be helpful in the long run.
Totally. And I mean, I think that's just the name of the entire game.
It really
Is, you know, like you try Weight Watchers and it doesn't work for you, then you got to try something else. Or what worked for you before won't always work, which is the story of COVID in every capacity of like life, the way that it worked exactly before. Things you have to change. And that's one of the reasons it sucked is like all of us had to like e-break and learn a new way to do things. And it's painful to have
So
that kind of
painful.
change.
Yeah.
And so, but the thing is, yeah, that you didn't give up and you're still trying. And I think the setbacks just make you stronger and you learn so many new lessons in that. And that's what I have to stop myself in multiple ways in life. And my journey is like, I'll get so frustrated and wish that I could fast forward through this. Like, can't we just get to the other side of this? And I'm like tired of dealing with this. And it's like, but this is the part where I'm learning the most. Like, this is, I'm not going to have the better message for myself until I go through this.
Right.
Like, I'm going to have so much more to offer, and I'm going to be better with everything I do by going through this stuff that just totally blows and I hate and I want it to be over with. But that's where you grow. And I feel like, you know, I can do this podcast better. I can do my social media better. I can be a better personal trainer. I can be a better friend, everything. And, you know, and I feel like that's the initial lesson I learned from that is just from my own just weight loss journey is like when I started losing weight and feeling better about myself. And I think really the confidence is the thing. It's not necessarily the weight or the number on the scale.
Yeah.
It's about feeling good about me, feeling proud of myself and happy with who I am and what I'm doing. It just bleeds into every single aspect of life. Like
100%.
Getting better at my job, better at everything because I'm like, felt good about me. So that's what sucks of kind of being in this season now when you're not feeling so good about you. And especially when you know how good you can feel. I think that's what's so frustrating. And you feel like, you know, wheels spinning in the mud because you're just kind of like, oh, I just feel good about myself again. But it's like you have to go through this and you'll feel so much better about yourself and so much more proud on the other side. But you're just like, couldn't it just get here already?
Yeah, right. You just took all the words right out of my mouth. Like you have to sit in it and go through it, and you come out better on the other side. And like I said before, I was doing stuff that wasn't sustainable. I was working out far too often, probably not like taking as much care of myself as far as nutrition. Because after a while, once I had lost all the weight, I'm like, okay, I can skip a meal, whatever, you know?
Yeah.
So being forced to stop, reevaluate, find something that's going to work in a real life. Like I don't have all the time to work out now. And, you know, just setting up new standards and being able to pivot. That's what COVID taught me, to pivot, you know?
Yeah.
If that's not working, try something else, like you said, or just or just keep showing up until you're ready to try something else.
Exactly.
So
that's the important one. That's where too, like where so many people are like, oh, I wish I had the motivation. I'm like, oh, it's not motivation. It is just showing up and grinding it out sometimes.
Yep, very much so.
And it's,
especially when you don't see any, you're like, this isn't working, but
Yeah.
I'm going to stay moving, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and that's where, like, you know, for me, like last year was just getting to such a point where I'm like, I have to admit, like, I can't do this by myself this time. Like, this is just a new level that, like, it was a lot of life changes dumped into a very short amount of time.
But
and I'm like, no.
isn't that a mind game? Like, I tell people to do this, but I can't do it by myself.
Yeah.
I'm like, why? You know,
Yeah.
It's okay for a trainer or a coach to have a trainer or a coach.
For
Like,
sure.
It's encouraged. I learned so much by having those, you know, but it's still a mind game.
Yeah.
It's like,
you feel like, oh, I should have all the answers. If somebody's paying me to do this, like
Right.
I should know everything, or I did this all by myself. And I you know, it's like that I've also learned too, of like, you got to let that go. I'm like, I've done a lot by myself, but you can do so much better when you can get help from someone else. And I don't know why. I don't know if that's an American thing or what that is, of like to have so much shame
right.
around asking for help, as if like you're an automatic failure because you couldn't lift the weight of the world on your shoulders.
Right.
It's wild.
It is. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So, and like some of the best coaches that I know have their own coaches.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Personal trainers have their own trainers, or their group of people that they work out with and give them ideas. Like this just... in so many spaces like that. But for some reason, I don't know why. I mean, I'm just going to say health and fitness because that's what I know the best in this space. Like where it feels like, like you just feel like you have to do that on your own.
Yeah. I had started like a virtual nutrition accountability group towards the end of 2020. And I ended up taking like two months off or something. 'Cause I'm like, I do not feel right telling these people what to do when I'm not doing it, you know? But it's like, just 'cause I'm not 110% on my game doesn't mean I still can't give them like the right information, or, you know, like, I don't know. It's so crazy on the other side.
Yeah. Well, I think it is just because it is such a vulnerable topic. Like we're talking about our bodies and how we feel about ourselves and what we're doing with our own bodies. And, you know, when you're putting that out in the world, it's just like, I think the whole process is just filled with shame and vulnerability. And it's really hard to, I think, maneuver that a lot, especially when, you know, you're like us and you've gone through this journey and you have all of those feelings yourself and you know how it is. And then you're dealing with other people. You just want to take that pain away from them and help them through that. But at the same time, like you've got your own crap you're dealing with. And then and it's imposter syndrome. Like it's a weird swirl. But like for me, I would want that of like, you understand what I'm saying. It's not just like, well, I don't know, eat egg whites for breakfast. You know what I mean? Like, well, thanks. That doesn't help me.
Yes, exactly.
So it's, again, like I feel like you just have to live it. And I think that's why it's probably hard to ask for help, because it does feel like shameful and vulnerable to be like, I can't. Then I can't almost feels like I won't.
Right.
And I don't know. It's just, that's where it's like, this is, you know, not that I ever want to scare anybody off from like losing weight or bettering themselves, but to be like, you're signing up for a lifetime of mindset shifts and constantly switching how you move your body and how you nourish your body. And the people around you and your circles are change. Your friends are going to change. You're going to have probably issues with some family members. Like everything gets flipped and switched around. And it's like, that's where you have to make the decision of like what's worth it and what's not. And ultimately for me, it's like, well, I'm worth it. I mean, I'm the main character in my life.
Right, exactly. Do what feels good for you.
Yeah, because again, when you're feeling good and you're doing your thing, everyone else around you benefits, but it's really hard to put yourself in that mindset when things are on fire.
Yes, exactly. Well, and that's what I preach. I'm like, in fitness is freedom from yourself, freedom from everything you held yourself back from. Like you said, that confidence bleeds into everything. And when you're not feeling that, I feel like I'm holding myself back again. And I want to get back to the feeling of confidence, freedom, alignment.
Yeah.
And I'm getting there, but it's taken sitting with it. It's taken, reaching out to people for help. It's taking the community of people I have around me. Like I'm surrounded with amazing people who are just always checking in or, giving the love or, stuff like that. Just like, hey, have a great day. Okay, thanks. That reminds me I have good people. I am good people,
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's also just such the positive side of being part of a fitness community. I mean,
yes.
you're working at 2 different gyms, and just to be like, or again, like the idea of a personal trainer, I said earlier, you think like intimidating, perfect body sort of thing. But in reality, it's this really supportive group of people and an
You're
atmosphere.
so right.
Yeah.
Yes.
That you're just like, this is so welcoming and warm. And like from clients to coworkers to everybody, it's like everybody, no one's here tearing me down. It's
Right.
like, then why are you, being like, beating yourself up for like this narrative you're telling yourself that doesn't even exist.
I know. We create it in our own head. But yeah, it's definitely by far the best group of people I've ever surrounded myself with.
That's awesome.
Yeah, just the fitness community in general, the clients, my coworkers, the owners, it's good people. And I definitely think that's helped sustain me.
So how long have because you went from graphic design as your job to the fitness space, how long have you been a personal trainer now?
Since 2019.
Okay.
So a couple years.
How are you feeling about it? Are you feeling like this, I made the right decision? This is the
Yeah,
space
for
to be
sure.
in?
It's a very fulfilling decision. Leaving, as your job and getting into this industry, it takes some patience and it takes some grit and some, long days doing some things you don't want to do to make sure ends are met and stuff like that. But I wouldn't change it. No. And I would never go back to a 9-to-5.
Well,
no.
yeah, I mean, I've never had a normal job.
That's true. Yeah.
I've never had like a desk job really,
Right.
even though being in radio involved a lot of sitting. But like, yeah, I've just, even now, like where just, take away like just the physical aspects of like, I'm showing people how to do things and I'm moving weights around, I'm moving my body, and every single day is different. Every
Yep.
person I see every day is different. The schedule, which the scheduling thing was probably be the most difficult thing to get used to.
Tetris.
Yes, 1000% Tetris of like, but outside of that, it's just like, every day is new in a different way. And I'm moving my body in different ways and I'm learning different things in different ways to move my body and helping other people do that and running myself through workouts I want to run other people through so I can feel what they're going to feel, and then like stuff like that where I'm like, it's so cool to me. And I'm like, I couldn't just sit behind a desk and I don't know, do marketing or something all day. Like I just feel like I would have an expiration date that's real
right.
short.
Yeah. And I think knowing like when people leave you, they feel better about themselves is like such an intrinsic reward,
Yeah.
Like whenever you leave training, you're like, yeah, I just did that, or, stuff like that.
Well, and that's where, I was having in such a different way, getting in my head about being a personal trainer, of thinking also personal trainer of like, oh my God, I got to know every muscle in the shoulder and be like a master of human anatomy, which I am not.
Yeah.
And at all. But like, where I'm like, but what I really love is talking to people. And like, again, like I see people in half-hour segments, because all of my clients currently pay for half-hour sessions. And so it's like in that half hour of like, how can I make exercise fun? This isn't a chore. Like, let's joke around, like, let's laugh, let's get some work done.
Yes.
But like, let's have a conversation about the day. Let me answer some questions for you. Let's be like,
enjoy
silly
your
and
time.
stupid.
Yeah.
And so like for me, and then I was crying in the shower like a month ago, thinking about how I'm not a great personal trainer in my head. And I'm like, but who makes the definition of personal trainer?
Right.
Like, can't I make the definition of personal trainer? I'm like, and can't that
and
just
that's,
be?
Right. If that's what you like, then other people like it, likely,
Yeah. So. And so, I mean, I know about the body. I don't want anybody to think that I'm a personal trainer. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on there.
Whatever
but you know
that
what
piece
I mean?
is.
That piece of meat, move it that way.
Yeah.
And so, but I'm just thinking again, like I need to be like some anatomy textbook. So it's but yeah, like, yeah, well, that's what I get the most enjoyment out of. And that's where I feel like my strengths are. And I'm just kind of learning that doing this for months now. Like it's not, I haven't been doing this for years of like, that's my favorite part. That's fulfilling to me to like, just get to know people and meet them on their level. Yeah. And kind of really try to attack the goals in the small windows of time that I have with them. Because I mean, I do feel like that's what's hard too is, I see people for like a total an hour a week most times. Yeah. And that's a lot of time on their own to try, especially if they have weight loss goals of like, I can't make you lose weight in 1 hour a week. Right. You know what I mean? I want to do the very best I can. And I'm here if you text me questions for sure. Right. But that's what's, I feel like personally responsible of like, oh, I want this for you so bad, but I can't do this for you. Yeah. And then I worry of like, well, what if they're not hitting their goals? I'm like, I don't want them to be like, oh, well, Amanda is a shit trainer and she didn't help me reach my goals. Yes. Or yes. I have to be like, that's not me. I did the very best I could. And that's where it's at. You can't feel responsible for every human. A whole nother mind game. Right? Yes, I know. Yeah. Because I was taking on a lot of personal responsibility when people weren't finding success with like the nutrition stuff but I'm like, okay, Tara, put yourself back in the shoes when you tried stuff and it didn't work. Yeah. Like it was you, like someone has to be, they have responsibility too. Majority of it, So yeah, another mind game. Yeah. Girl, so many mind games. I know, right? This career shift. And then like you said, coming from a mindset where this would never be. And then you're there and now you're like, oh man, a whole new ball game. Yeah. It's just, this is where I feel like, I asked for growth and I'm getting it. Yes. Yeah. I'm like, I asked for this. And I'm not complaining. Like I am learning so much and it's such an amazing experience. And every day I learn more and I love everything so much. And the new things I learned that I didn't even know that I could love. But yeah, it's every obstacle in my way I placed there. Like, yes. And that is so hard to understand. So that's like props to you for recognizing that and calling it out. Because when you said that, you're like, no one said these things to me. No one sent me messages saying, you're not good enough to do this. You're like, I made all that up. Yeah. And I'm like, well, damn, I did too. Yeah, right. Like I'm putting all this pressure on myself. Yeah. It's like and then you're frustrated on top of that. Like, well, knock it off. Right. Well, stop. Like, what the hell? But you can't. Yeah. It's like it's like another like level you have to work through. Or I guess it feels like if you want to keep leveling up and having growth and moving forward and being the best version of you, then you're going to have to deal with getting punched in the head by yourself to get there. Yeah. And you said no one can say anything mean to me on Instagram because I'm already beating myself up enough. Like, yeah. Could come at me, but I've got you beat, Yeah, right? Yeah, it was just, I totally get that. Yeah, it's just, and that's where I'm like, I wish I had solutions and maybe one day I'll have better ones, but. You almost have to just go through it. Yeah, you do. And that's where, and I was just having a conversation like this on another episode I did of just like, with my friend Shannon, we do updates every week of like, we're talking about, man, I just wish that you knew that like doing like these shake diets and stuff like that are just going to lead to a bad place. You're going to lose the weight at first and you'll be like, hell yeah, I got this. Right. Woo-hoo! Yeah. And then whenever you try to like, you never learned how to eat. I mean, it was what I did when I was on LA weight loss. I like never learned how to eat. I learned how to do exactly what they told me to do with no other information. Mm-hmm. And so it's like whenever you do that and you gain the weight back and then some, of like how much it just ruins you. Yeah. And that I'm like, I know we can have this conversation right now, but I don't know if everybody can hear that without living through that first, which is what sucks is because I just don't want people to go through that or feel that because I felt it and I know how much it sucks. But it's like, but sometimes you just like, you just have to until you know. And I don't know. That's what's got to be painful. Like I'm not a parent. But yeah, like, I was going to say relating that to I mean, kids of like, you're just like, they got to make this stupid mistake to learn from. You just got to watch your kid do the dumb thing or get their heart broken or whatever. Like, ugh.
Yes.
No.
You're just watching like, ugh.
Yeah. So
But you'll come out wiser.
yeah. So yeah, it's for sure a journey. That is a good word for it.
Yeah, but I think being in this industry and always being challenged mentally and physically is just, it's probably the most healthy my mind has been, you know,
Yeah.
just even when I'm down, it's a different down than when I wasn't involved in fitness. It's just, I feel like it's a more manageable or I know resources to go to because I've learned to just navigate differently.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, and I just feel like I think that comes from because you're trying to help people.
Yeah.
And like, you know, in my previous job of just being on the radio, take this podcast out of it. And, you know, I would help people in certain ways, but a lot of it's just, hey, let's play a contest to win concert tickets and talking about what Luke Bryan's doing.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So, I mean, it's awesome. It's fulfilling. I love radio very much, but it's like, from working in this space where I'm like, I can physically see people changes in people. I can see the change on their face, their attitude, their skin, how they show up when they show up to the gym, and like watch somebody take initiative of their own life and be like, I want to make a change for me for the better, and be able to be like, some part of that is just so amazing, which is why it's worth the shitty schedule.
Right.
and some of these things that are like frustrating to get through and learn in the head games, because it's like ultimately what it boils down to is like, my job is to help people have the best experience or an easier path to doing the things that I know changed my life.
Right.
And that's like, yeah, where I feel like just my attitude towards life, or just, you know, my general happiness is up way more than what it used to be, because it's like,
Oh, me
I
too.
can't feel bad about that.
Yeah.
It's
for
so
sure.
cool.
It is so cool. And I also like about being in this industry and making the career shift is like it almost intertwines with my personal life. So like things I learn for other people are also helping me. And like if I go to a physical therapy for me, it's also helping me give information to my client or to my class, or, you know. So I love that it's all just like working together. No two things are fighting against each other.
Yeah.
Except for me in my head. But
Yeah,
everything
exactly.
else, everything else is like cohesive.
Yeah, that's the same thing with me, where my body is broken in so many ways. And again, like it's in my head of like, well, I'm a personal trainer, I should be go crushing it. Where I had multiple people tell me, including my physical therapist, they're like, this is just going to make you an amazing trainer because you know how it feels. Like, you know what the struggle of pain feels like. You know what you're going to have to do to get out of it. You're understanding your own body better, so you can understand people of like, you have lower back pain. So does a million other people.
Right.
So you're going to be able to translate that. So yeah, exactly that point where it's like, where you're like, oh, I want to view this as a failure, but it's like, no, it's actually like a huge win in a lot of ways.
Making me more relatable.
Yeah.
Right. I know. It's the
Crazy.
best.
So are you taking on any more personal training clients?
Yeah, I do a little bit of personal training. My schedule is pretty busy. So during the day, like there's a couple days a week that I have a small window. And I also do like nutrition and accountability with people, but I strictly do macros. Just because that's what worked for me and that's what I'm good at.
Yeah.
And I also find sustainability in it. It was something I was able to manage, something I don't necessarily need to track all the time and still can have success. So yeah, that's what I do right now on the side.
And then you work at Shred.
Yep. Shred. Mm-hmm.
And then, so if somebody wanted to take a group class, could they like specifically sign up for one of your classes?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Come on in, Tara. I teach Tuesday nights, Friday mornings, and Saturday mornings.
Right on.
Yeah. It's so fun in there too. Like the people tell me I'm a motivational speaker, and they're like, I get into it, and I mean, it's dark, it's loud. And like, once the music, if something hits me with that music, I can spit out just the right thing at the right time to tell you like, push just a little bit more, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good environment. And I suggest everyone come and take at least a class. It's so fun. The energy is just unmatched. It's like, it's a workout I've never, I had never really seen that kind of energy before.
Yeah.
So,
That's awesome.
It's fun.
So if anybody else has just any general questions or anything like that, would just Instagram be the best way to get hold of you?
Yeah, that's perfect. @TBreezy_BFit.
All right. And I'll put all the links and all that stuff
Yeah.
in the show notes. And thanks for coming on and having this
thank
conversation.
you so much for being vulnerable and open and relatable.
Oh, well, thank you. Ditto.
Yeah, cool. Thank you so much.
AmandaValentineBites.com.